Hello everyone and welcome back to Dr. Wasif Academy. Today we are diving into a cornerstone topic in human biology, that is human metabolism and energy requirements. In this lecture, we are going to demystify the inner workings of your cellular engine. We will break down the true scientific meaning of metabolism, separating the dynamic forces of catabolism and anabolism. We shall also discuss exactly how to calculate the energy locked inside our food using calorimetry. So, whether you are preparing for your IGCSE O-level exams, mastering advanced A-level biology, or just want to understand the data mechanics behind everyday food labels, this lecture will give you the exact tools and formulas you need to score high marks. So, let's start our today's lecture. In everyday conversation, people often talk about metabolism as just how fast your body burns food. But as biologists, we need to be much more precise. Metabolism is actually the comprehensive network of every single chemical reaction happening inside your cells, whether your cells are actively building new proteins or breaking down glucose for energy. These combined chemical processes are the literal engine of life. First of all, we have catabolism. Think of catabolism as the body's demolition crew. This is the process of breaking down large complex molecules like the carbohydrates, proteins, and fats which you eat, and that is broken down into smaller, simpler units. The primary goal of catabolism is to release energy. When your cells oxidize glucose during respiration to produce ATP, they are executing a catabolic pathway. Secondly, we have anabolism. If catabolism is the demolition crew, anabolism is the construction team. This is the process that uses the energy released by catabolism to build and repair body tissues and create essential macromolecules. So whether your cells are linking amino acids together to build muscle fibers or constructing new DNA strands for cell division, they are running on anabolic pathways. Anabolism does not make energy, it consumes it to build you. So remember this simple rule for your exams. Catabolism breaks down to release energy and anabolism builds up by consuming it. Together, they form the rhythmic continuous cycle which keeps you alive. Even when you are completely at rest, fast asleep, or lying perfectly still, your body is working incredibly hard behind the scenes. It has to pump blood through your vessels, inflate your lungs, and maintain a constant internal temperature. The baseline energy required to keep these vital involuntary functions running is called your basal metabolic rate or BMR. On your exams, you will be often asked what biological factors influence this baseline. So there are three key players you must remember. First of all is age. BMR is typically highest during periods of rapid development like infancy and adolescence because growing tissues require massive amounts of energy. As we age, it naturally decreases as cell turnover slows down and muscle mass gradually declines. Secondly is about sex, means gender. On average, biological males tend to have a higher BMR than biological females. This is largely driven by body composition. Males generally have a higher proportion of lean muscle tissue. And thirdly is body composition. This is the ultimate decider. Muscle tissue is highly metabolically active compared to adipose or fat tissue. So the more lean muscle or means a leaner muscle a person has, the more energy their body burns even while sitting completely still. So your BMR is not a fixed number you are stuck with. It is a direct reflection of your body's unique living architecture. As a high yield exam tip for you, that when students write about gender differences in BMR, they often vaguely state that males are bigger. You should remember to use the specific biological rationale. You should use the term or phrase that males tend to have a higher ratio of muscle to fat tissue, and muscle tissue has a higher metabolic demand than fat tissue. That specific focus on tissue type is what earns the marks. So, my dear viewers, while your basal metabolic rate keeps your lights on while you sleep, your actual total daily energy requirement, that is TDEE, that goes much further. To figure out how much energy an individual actually needs to consume each day, we use a straightforward biological formula that is here, that BMR plus physical activity. If we add these both, we shall have total daily energy requirement. Now, BMR stays relatively stable day to day, but physical activity is the most variable part of this entire equation. It changes dramatically depending on an individual's lifestyle and occupation. Let's look at two opposite ends of the spectrum, that is sedentary lifestyle and active lifestyle. First of all, we shall consider a sedentary lifestyle. For example, an office worker or a student who spends most of their day sitting at a desk. Their daily movement is minimal, meaning they might only need an additional 20 to 30% above their baseline basic metabolic rate, baseline BMR, to fuel their entire day. Now, contrast that with an active lifestyle. Think of a manual laborer, a construction worker, or a professional athlete. Because their muscle cells are constantly undergoing high rates of aerobic and anaerobic respiration to power intense physical exertion, they might require double their BMR, sometimes even more than that, just to maintain their body weight and stay energized. So when we look at nutritional health, a one size fits all caloric recommendation does not work. Your diet must scale to match the mechanical work that your body performs. You can pause this video right here and you can look at these two lifestyles, means sedentary and active lifestyle, and then comment below that if a sedentary office worker eats the diet of a manual laborer, remember, I repeat it, if a sedentary office worker eats the diet of a manual laborer, what will happen to that excess chemical energy? Think about this question and then respond in the comments section. The hint here is you should have to think about tissue storage before answering this question. To help you truly visualize how dynamic our daily energy budgets are, look at this breakdown for an average adult male that weighs approximately 70 kg or 154 pounds. When we change nothing but the physical demand placed on his muscle, notice how dramatically the number scales change. At the baseline, At a baseline, a sedentary office worker requires roughly 8,500 kilojoule a day. This covers his BMR and the minimal movement of commuting or sitting at a desk. But when uh, we talk about a moderately active lifestyle, watch what happens when as lifestyle activities steps up, that is a moderately active individual, okay, then that requirement jumps to 11,500 kilojoules, and someone who is vigorously active, perhaps working a manual labor job or training daily, scales all the way up to 14,000 kilojoules. You can look at here, okay, for a vigorously active person that goes up to 14,000 kilojoules. And look at our peak baseline, that is elite athlete. The intensive training demands are staggering 16,000 plus kilojoules every single day just to stay in energy balance. So if that elite athlete ate, he consumed the 8,500 kilojoule diet of an office worker, his body would rapidly enter a catabolic state, means breaking down its own muscle tissues for fuel. Conversely, if the office worker consumed the athlete's diet, that massive surplus of chemical energy would be stored by the body as adipose tissue. So now you have the answer of the question which we asked in the previous slide. So remember, energy demands are not static. Your diet must be a direct reflection of the physical work your cellular engines are going. Now, building directly on our formula for total energy requirement, let's look at the real world variables. These factors prove definitely that when it comes to human nutrition, a one size fits all approach simply does not exist. A healthy diet must be precisely tailored to the specific mechanical and physiological demands placed on the body at any given moment. Let's look at our first major variable, that is occupation and activity. A software developer or an accountant sitting at a desk all day long has a remarkably low energy demand. Compare that directly to a professional athlete or a construction worker. Okay, their muscle fibers are constantly working, requiring a massive influx of fuel substrates to keep up. Next up is about age. This often surprises students, okay, likely growing teenagers between 14 and 18 years old have incredibly high energy demands relative to their body size because they are constantly synthesizing new tissues during puberty. Contrast that with a senior citizen over the age of 70 years. As cellular turnover slows down and muscle mass naturally declines, their total daily energy demand drops significantly. And finally, look at life stage, particularly pregnancy and breastfeeding. A pregnant woman is not just maintaining her own body, she is actively fueling fetal growth. This stage demands extra energy, alongside highly specific increases in iron for blood production and calcium for skeletal development. Similarly, breastfeeding requires a significant amount of daily metabolic energy to produce nutrient-rich milk. So remember, when you look at a nutritional label, those standard percentages are just an average. In the real world, your diet must constantly adapt to the life which you are living. You can look at this table and you can easily understand what I was talking about. You can have a screenshot of this slide and then you can easily understand that how occupation, activity, age differences and life stages affect our daily energy requirement. As a pro tip for your exam, when an exam question asks you to compare the energy needs of a pregnant woman to a non-pregnant adult, do not just mention energy, always add the specific macronutrient requirement. Remember, iron is used for the synthesis of extra fetal and maternal hemoglobin and calcium for the calcification of the fetus's bones. That extra level of detail is exactly what separates an grade from an A star. To really solidify how these energy demands shift in the real world, let's look at this comparative overview. This table perfectly connects a group's relative energy need directly to the underlying biological reason behind it. First of all, look at the growing children. Their relative energy needs is classified as high. As we discussed earlier, this is not just about them running around, they have a naturally elevated basal metabolic rate driven by relentless rapid cell division, tissue repair, and skeletal elongation. Next, we have active adults. Their needs fall into the moderate high bracket. For this group, the energy budget is a balanced equation between their baseline BMR and their external physical activity choices, like their daily occupation or their exercise habits. Then, look at pregnant women whose needs are steadily increased. The biological driver here is entirely constructive. The mother's body requires significant extra chemical energy to support the rapid development of the fetus and to construct the placenta and expand maternal supporting tissues. And finally, consider the elderly people. Their relative demand shifts to lower. This drop is a dual reaction. Their BMR naturally declines as muscle tissue mass decreases over time, and it is typically accompanied by a reduction in daily physical activity. So, when you look at nutrition through this comparative lens, you can see that the human body's energy demands are entirely logical. Dynamic numbers constantly adjusting to match the biological tasks at hand. As we know, as we have understood that energy is released from food inside our cells through respiration, which is fundamentally a biological oxidation process. For us to measure exactly how much chemical energy is locked inside a piece of food, we can compare respiration directly to combustion or burning. Why? Because both processes break down the exact same chemical bonds, releasing the exact same total amount of energy from a given sample. To capture this energy in a laboratory, we use an apparatus which we call as food calorimeter, or more professionally, we also call that as bomb calorimeter. The methodology is very clear. We take a precisely weighed food sample and place it inside the central chamber where it is ignited and burnt completely in an oxygen-rich atmosphere. As the food burns, the chemical energy is released as heat. This heat is transferred directly to a surrounding known volume of water. We measure the starting temperature and the final temperature of that water. The rise in water temperature tells us exactly how much thermal energy was transferred. Now let's look at a critical note. Now let's look at a critical note on experimental accuracy, which examiners love to test. If you set this up using basic glassware in a school lab, a massive amount of heat escapes into the surrounding air instead of entering the waste. So, no doubt the professional bomb calorimeters solve this issue. As you can see in this diagram, they are heavily insulated to block heat loss and they feed pure oxygen into the central bomb chamber to ensure the food sample burns completely. This guarantees that all released heat is captured exclusively by the water jacket, giving us an incredibly precise measurement. As a practical tip for you for your exams, when an examiner asks you how to improve the accuracy of a simple laboratory food calorimetry requirement, always provide these two distinct points to secure full marks. Number one, add insulation or a draft shield around the apparatus to reduce heat loss to the surroundings. Secondly, use a stirrer to distribute the heat evenly through the water before taking the final temperature reading. Okay, if you will add these two points in your response, in your answer, you will have a good mark, high marks. To tie all of our calculation work together into a single master key, let's look at this absolute energy density reference guide. Whether you are analyzing a food label or solving an exam calculation, these are the universal constants for the four energy yielding components of our diet. First, notice the perfect symmetry between carbohydrates and proteins, gram for gram, as I used this term in previous lectures 7.3, gram for gram. They yield the exact same amount of raw chemical energy, means 17 kilojoules per gram. Okay, you can see that here, 17 kilojoules per gram. Carbohydrates and proteins, this amount is same for both, which translates to approximately 4 kilocalories per gram. However, remember their physiological destinations are completely different. Carbohydrates are utilized for quick energy and glycogen storage, while proteins are prioritized for tissue structure and cellular repair. Next, look at dietary fats. At a massive 38 kilojoules per gram, lipids pack more than double the energy density of carbs or proteins. This immense density makes them the body's ultimate evolutionary mechanism for long-term energy storage. And here's a question for you, which examiners love to ask. They sometimes use multi-step application questions. They might tell a student that a snack contains 10 gram of carbohydrates, 5 gram of protein, and 4 gram of fat. Calculate its total energy content in kilojoules. Now, what is to calculate total energy content in this snack? Okay, you will have to use the above table, and using this table we can exactly calculate total energy. How that can be calculated? Remember, what is the carb? What is the carb here? Carbs are 10 gram. So what is the energy which is the carbs are giving? 17 kilojoules per gram. So if it is 10 gram, then it means we shall multiply 17 with 10 and then we will have 170 kilojoules. What about protein? Protein in this snack is 5 gram. Okay, and then we shall multiply 5 with 17, then we will have 85 kilojoules. And fat is 4 gram. So what is fat? Fat is multiplied with 38. It means that will give us 152 kilojoules. So by adding these all three, we shall have what the this one snack is giving us. That is 407, means 407 kilojoules. So by using this table, we can exactly calculate the energy given by any food item. So when you flip over a food package to check its nutritional values, you will see the energy content listed in two different systems, SI system and the traditional unit system. Let's break this down so you never mix them up for on an exam. First of all, we have the joule, which symbol J. This is the official international standard unit of energy. Now, a single joule is tiny. It's roughly the amount of energy you need to lift a small apple 1 meter straight up into the air. Because it is so small, food labels always scale it up to kilojoules or kj. Just remember your basic matrix prefix, that is 1000 joules equals to 1 kilojoule. You should have to remember this thing here. Okay, 1000 joules are equal to 1 kilojoules. Secondly, we have the calorie, which symbol CAL, small CAL. This is an older unit, chemically defined as the exact amount of thermal energy required to raise the temperature of 1 cubic centimeter of water by 1 degree Celsius. This is the definition of a calorie. So just like joules, individual calories are too small for real world meals. So we bundle them into kilocalories or KCAL. So if an exam question asks you to convert between the two, the standard conversion factor is 1 calorie equals to 4.2 kilojoules. Okay, remember it. 1 calorie is equal to 4.2 joules. Or you can say that 1 kilocalorie is about 1 kilocalorie is equals to 4.2 kilojoules. Okay, that is the same thing. So keep this number in your back pocket for multi-step energy calculation questions. Now here is a major point of confusion that catches students out, that is the capital C rule. In popular media and on everyday food packaging, you will often see the word calories spelled with a capital C. Biologically, that capital C is a shorthand trick. It actually means a kilocalorie. So if a snack bar says it has 100 calories with a capital C, it means 100 kilocalories. Remember it. I am repeating that if a snack bar says it has 100 calories with a capital C, it means 100 kilocalories, which is technically 100,000 small calories. Always check the capitalization. So every single value you see printed on these packages was not guessed. It was calculated using the exact calorimeter process we just looked at the previous slide. Scientists burn a sample of the product in a controlled bomb calorimeter. Okay, then they measure the heat released and convert that thermal energy directly into the kilojoules or kilocalories in numbers, which you read at the breakfast table on the food packages. So when we look at a food under a microscope, different organic molecules hold vastly different amounts of chemical energy within their bonds. As it has been discussed earlier, okay, that what fats give us, what proteins give us, what carbohydrates give us. Here's just a recap of this table, but definitely we should add something more in on this slide. You will have to understand the carbohydrate paradox. Looking at this data, it reveals a fascinating biological contradiction that we call the carbohydrate paradox. If fats provide more than double the energy of carbohydrates, that is gram for gram, why are carbohydrates the primary non-negotiable energy source for the vast majority of humans on Earth? Why don't we just derive all our energy from fats? It comes down to two highly efficient biological reasons. Means larger quantities of carbohydrates, means dense starches and grains like rice, bread, and potatoes, than we do pure lipids. Secondly, and most importantly for your exams, is accessibility. Glucose, which is the monomer building block of carbohydrates, is incredibly easy and rapid for your cells to break down and oxidize during respiration. So complex lipid molecules, on the other hand, they require a far longer, more chemically exhausting metabolic pathway to convert into usable energy. So fats are incredibly long-term storage vault, but carbohydrates are the high-speed cache that your cells need to spend right now to power your life. As a exam tip for you, If an exam question asks why sports drinks or emergency rations contain simple carbohydrates like glucose instead of fats, your answer should be very simple and technical. Do not just say that is for energy. Use a precise technical wording that glucose is a simple sugar that is rapidly absorbed into the bloodstream and easily oxidized to release energy quickly during aerobic respiration. And that specific focus on speed and ease of breakdown is where the marks are hidden. Let's talk all of the theory we have just discussed and put it into practice with a real laboratory calculation. Imagine you are in the lab and you are testing a piece of dried pasta using a simple calorimeter. Here is the raw data that you collected during your experiment. The mass of your pasta sample is exactly 0.5 gram. The volume of water in your test tube is 20 cubic centimeter or 20 milliliter. That is the same. Okay. The value is given in cubic centimeter or the value is given in milliliter, that is the same for water. Then your starting initial water temperature is 22 degrees Celsius. And after burning the pasta completely under the tube, the final temperature jumps to 57 degrees Celsius. Let's break down how to convert these raw numbers into standard energy units step by step. Number one, step one is always to calculate the total temperature rise. This is simple subtraction. That final temperature is subtracted from the initial temperature. That will be 35 degrees Celsius. Our burning pasta managed to raise the temperature of water, that is by 35 degrees Celsius. Now for step 2, we calculate the calories per gram. Remember our definition? A 1 calorie raises 1 cubic centimeter of water by 1 degree. So we multiply our temperature rise by the volume of water and then divide by the mass of the food to find out what a single gram would do. Here is the equation. The 35 degrees Celsius, that is the temperature difference, means the temperature rise, that is multiplied by 20 cubic centimeter, that is the volume of water, and divided by the 0.5 gram, that is the weight of the sample. In that case, we have this calorie for 1400 small calories per gram. But we are not finished yet. Exam boards want the international standard units, that is kilojoules per gram. To do this, in step 3, we do two things. First, we divide our calories by 1000. That is 1400 is divided by with 1000. That is converted to kilocalories. But then we multiply by our standard conversion factor of 4.2 to convert those calories directly into joules. It means 1400 divided by 1000 multiplied by 4.2, and this is your final scientific result. The energy content of this pasta sample is 5.88 kilojoules per gram. Okay, that is your result. So if you practice this exact three-step sequence, then find the temperature change, then calculate the baseline calories, and then convert to kilojoules, you will easily score full marks on any calculation questions which you will be asked. To wrap up our entire unit on energy and energetics, let's look at an actual exam style question. This is where the rubber meets the road. Means being a good biologist means being able to extract data from tables under exam pressure. Let's solve this step by step. Here we have various questions. Question A, B, C, D. D has two parts and then E. And these all questions should be answered considering this table. Okay. So question 1 is, what is the daily energy need for an active 8-year-old boy? Okay, you can see in this table that active boy age 8 years, he needs 8400 kilojoules energy. We go straight to answer this question, table 1, and there we found active boy aging 8 years, and we answer this at as 8400 kilojoules. Now question B requires a bit of math, that how many grams of food 3 does a male office worker needs. First we find this target, that a male office worker needs 10,500. kilojoules. You can see that here, that the daily requirement is 10,500 kilojoules. And next we look at table 2, that and see there we see that food 3 give us 1050 kilojoules per 100 grams. To find out how many 100-gram proteins he needs, we divide his total requirement by the food's energy value and multiply by 100 as it was done here. It means that he needs 1000 gram means 1 kilogram of food 3. No questions he asks for a comparison, that how much more energy does a laborer need than an office worker. We take the laborer's massive requirement of 18,900. Here it is. Laborer, male laborer, he requires 18,900 kilojoules, and then we shall subtract this energy requirement to a office worker, that is 10,500 kilojoules. Then the remaining is 8,400 kilojoules more. It means a laborer, male laborer, requires 8,400 kilojoules more energy than a male office worker. For question D, first part, which food is best for the laborer? We will select food A, food 1, because it has the highest energy density at 3,800 kilojoules per 100 gram. You can see that here, 3,800 kilojoules per 100 gram. So a laborer burns energy fast, so they need concentrated fuel, so that they do not have to spend all day eating massive volumes of bulky food. That is the reason he will require energy dense food. And for question number D, part 2, what is the least amount of food 1 he must eat? Then we use the same math style as before. Take the total requirement, divide by food 1, food 1's density, and scale it by 100 grams. Okay, here is the calculation, that 18,900, that is divided by 3,800 and then multiply by 100. The answer is 497.4 gram. It means he needs just under half a kilo of food 1 to survive his workday. And finally, question number E, that test our calorimetry formula. They give us the equation right on the paper. You can see that equation here. This is the equation. Mass of water times temperature rise times 4.2 and all divided by the mass of the food. Let's plug our experimental data points straight into the slot. And using the formula, energy, that is mass of water multiplied by temperature rise multiplied by 4.2 divided by mass of food. Then what is the, you can see that mass of water, that is 20, and temperature rise is 18 degrees Celsius, and mass of food is 2. Okay, so 20 multiplied by 18 divided by 2, and that is multiplied by a universal factor, that is 4.2. Then we have this result, 756 joules per gram, that is released per single gram of food. So if you can handle this level of data analysis, you are completely ready to ace the practical and mathematical elements of your nutrition unit. So my dear students, every cell in you is working to keep you alive, and you will have to make sure that you give them a purpose worth working for. And your main objective is here to understand these biological concepts and ace your exams. If this video helped clear up your confusion about calories, metabolism, or nutritional math, please hit that like button and subscribe to Dr. Wasif Academy. Do not forget to click the notification bell so you never miss a deep dive biology lecture. Drop any questions you have in the comment section below and I shall read and reply to them personally. Thank you for watching. Keep studying smart and I will see you in the next lecture tomorrow. Thank you and goodbye.